here to talk about what more can the Modi government do to ensure that growth comes onto a higher trajectory. Data just released an hour or so back shows that the GDP numbers for the second quarter came in at 4.5%. That's a low. That's a 6-year low. The last time the growth numbers had fallen to such a level was in the quarter ended March 2013, when the growth had come in at 4.3%. So this, the India's growth numbers have been falling for the last 6 quarters. From the beginning of 2018-19, GDP growth has been consistently falling every quarter. So the previous quarter, the growth came in at 5%, and the quarter before that, the growth was at 5.8%. So it does indicate that the economy is struggling. There is a deep slowdown led by many factors. The numbers this time show on how manufacturing has actually contracted by 1%. Sectors like construction and electricity have grown at a much slower pace. Agriculture has also grown at only around 2%. When we look at the expenditure side of calculation of GDP, we see on how gross fixed capital formation, that's an indicator of the investment demand in the economy, that has grown by only 1%. So these are the exports, again, we know have been low and have been contracting. So all these private final consumption expenditure, that's the consumption expenditure of households, that's been also growing at only around 5%. So the mainstay of the growth, at least in the second quarter, has been mainly on account of government expenditure, basically what the government is spending to prop up the economy. There's an expectation that the RBI will again reduce rates by 25 basis points in its December 5th monetary policy announcement. Since February, RBI has reduced rates by 135 basis points. At the same time, it has also pared down the growth forecast. So the RBI growth forecast as of now for 2019-20 is 6.1%, but there is an expectation that the RBI will lower this growth forecast further because the new numbers have come in. So the average growth rate for the first 2 quarters has been around, the first half of the fiscal has been around 4.8%. So 6.1% at this point of time looks really difficult. What economists have so far predicted have predicted that the full year growth will be around 5%. So the range has been roughly around 4.9% to 5.6% for the full year growth. There is an expectation that from now on, from the third quarter, the economy will, look up, and probably the economy has bottomed out, and the next quarter numbers will be better than the 4.5% that we have seen right now. So the government has announced many steps, to prop up the economy. This is besides what RBI, the rate cuts that the RBI announced. The government has introduced some sectoral relief for some sectors like automobiles and housing. They've also talked about on how it is considering, it is taking steps to ensure that every sectoral problems are addressed. The government has also announced corporate tax cuts. So the tax cuts have been reduced to an effective tax rate of 25%. That makes the Indian corporate tax system competitive when it comes to other Southeast Asian nations. So the government thinks that the measures like a cut in corporate tax rates will actually help in increasing investments, specifically in the manufacturing sector, because the manufacturing sector, the rates are even lower than the 25%. So the government is hoping that some of these measures will help in reviving investor sentiment and encourage more investors to invest into the country and invest in new manufacturing facilities. Again, but there are concerns of tax terrorism. Many startups and many other companies have raised concerns over aggressive tax demands by the taxman. There's this whole policy uncertainty also, because some of the measures and announcements that have been made by the previous regime have now been questioned, and even bureaucrats have been prosecuted or have been called for questioning by the investigative authorities at present. So please do send us your questions, and we'll try to answer them the best we can. The first question that we have got, that Manjunath Kamath is asking if economists have predicted a recession in the mid-2020, and how will it impact the Indian IT sector. So, recession means that the economy is not growing, that the economy is actually growing is actually contracting. That's, the growth is in negative it's a negative. I don't think India is likely to face a recession, because likely the growth has already bottomed out, and from the next quarter growth rates may improve from the 4.5% we have seen. So India may not be near maybe not be near a recession stage. But again, what is interesting is at this point of time, what economists are fearing is a situation like a stagflation. Stagflation is basically where demand is stagnant in the economy, but inflation levels are rising. We saw that the October retail inflation numbers increased to 4.65%. So 4% is what the RBI has to target as per the inflation targeting law that the government has passed. So, and there are fears that the inflation will further increase in November because of high food prices. So, stagflation seems to be the real concern at the moment rather than recession. The next question that we have is from Dhruv Dhariwal, who's basically, I think it's more a suggestion than a question, where he's talking about how farming should be made a government job and how this will help in decreasing unemployment and improving farm production, and how also new PSUs could be introduced. So an interesting suggestion, but remember at this point of time, the government is actually trying to exit from non-strategic industries and sell off its stake in public sector undertakings. It's unlikely that the government is actually going to move into a sector and again, form PSUs specifically for the agriculture sector. So Shobhit Singh is asking if the government's privatization move will bear results. So the government plans to sell off 5 state-run enterprises, basically privatize, sell them, and bring down, sell more than its 51% stake, and bring down and give management control to the buyer. So in 2 of those 5 firms are actually going to be sold to another state-run enterprise, that's NTPC. The remaining BPCL, Shipping Corporation of India, and Container Corporation of India, they propose to sell it to a private sector entity. So it remains to be seen if the government will be able to do it within the March 2020 deadline, and if the disinvestment proceeds come into the government's budget within in the next 4 months. The government has started the process of appointing asset sale advisors, in transaction advisors, legal advisors, asset valuers also, so that, and it is trying to speed up the process. It's also trying to sell off Air India, the national carrier, which is a loss-making enterprise as of now. The next question that we have is, what can Modi, when will Achhe Din come? That's Chandrasekhar Purohit is asking. So I think, that's been a promise that the Modi government has come in with, and it will try to meet the promises that meet its poll promises. So, among them include doubling the farmers' income and also ensuring creation of jobs. But at this point of time, the government will have to focus on increasing, supporting the economy and helping it revive. Dev Bhattacharya is asking if will India be able to tackle the slowdown anytime soon. So far the steps that the government has taken mainly address supply side issues. Many economists have said that the government has not taken enough steps to address the demand side issues. So economists have propagated a fiscal stimulus, mainly through tax swaps to particular sectors, as well as a reduction in personal income tax rates. They're hoping that these measures could help in reviving consumption demand. So right now, consumption growth has been really low, and this has been one of the reasons which has been pulling GDP down. Akshay Deshwal is asking that we have been hearing that the economy may look up from now for about a year now, but it still hasn't looked up. So yes, the numbers do indicate that the economy has been consistently slowing for the last 1.5 years, and the growth that we are seeing was the levels that we are seeing now were last seen in March 2013. So yes, the numbers right now are a cause of worry, and the government will have to act swiftly to ensure that it's able to revive the economy. Devanshu Gupta is asking about what about the fiscal deficit target? Should it be breached? So the government has a fiscal deficit target of 3.3% of gross domestic product. As of now, it looks really difficult that the government will be able to meet this 3.3% fiscal deficit target. This is because tax revenues have been hardly growing. So as the economy is slowing, the government has also found it difficult to collect tax revenue. This is because corporates are paying less taxes because they're generating less profits. So in a situation of a slowdown, tax collections are the first one to be hit. So we are seeing on how direct tax collections have slowed down sharply, and so have collections, the goods and services tax collections have also been below targets. So at this point of time, it is, as it is, the government is going to find it difficult to meet its fiscal deficit targets of 3.3% of GDP as of March 2020. Added to that, on the positive side, government is going to get more money from RBI as transfers, so that is a positive. But it remains to be seen what is the fiscal space that it has. Some economists have said that the government should reach its 3.3% fiscal deficit target and ensure that it's able to, it gives fiscal sobs so that consumption demand is revived. But the government as of now has resisted the idea of this kind of a stimulus. Lokesh Kumar Ray is asking, in spite of best intentions, the BJP government is caught in the trap of auctioning resources and taxing to death. Telecom, mining, and now solar are victims. What is being done to reverse this? So, some of the concerns have been, expressed and have been conveyed to the government. For instance, the whole telecom sector has represented about the whole AGR revenues and the impact of the Supreme Court's order on the health of the financial health of the companies. Solar companies have also presented, how GST has been regressive for them because, since the output is not taxed, their inputs, they're not able to get any input tax credit for the inputs that they buy. So it's not that the government is not aware of the problems, but it will remain to be seen the extent to which the government can address these sector-specific problems. Prasad Mukherjee is asking that does this growth include the festive sales? So the numbers are for the July to September quarter, but these are production numbers. So, it also shows that the companies were not really positive about a sharp increase in festive sales. So production has been muted, specifically manufacturing. So what the data shows is that manufacturing actually contracted by 1% during the July to September period. So the festive season typically started from, I think, from September 29th and lasted for more than a month. So if one looks at the auto sale numbers and other numbers, there has been some revival, but definitely not to the levels that were seen last year. So the festive sales have remained relatively subdued compared to last year. Logical Man is asking, what is the usual lag between policy decisions and change in economic indicators? So, it actually depends on the kind of policy reforms that have come in, right? Say for an example, a corporate tax cut. Corporate tax cut is for the new manufacturing sector, the incentives that have been announced. Companies have time till 2023 to set up their units and claim the tax benefits. So again, in that case, the benefits will be with a lag. Specifically sectoral measures like the ones that have been recently announced for real estate and housing, those have been measures that depends on the government's implementation of the speed. So if the government is able to quickly identify projects and help in that last mile funding, these projects could see a revival pretty soon. But again, it depends on, the pace at which the government works. So it's difficult to, unlike RBI policy where you can say that, an RBI rate cut is transmitted with a lag of say 3 to 6 months. In terms of government decisions, each decision has its own transmission time. Tarush is asking, can massive decrease in income tax help consumption? Something that the economists have been echoing is the fact that there has to be a demand side push, and they believe that a sharp reduction in income tax rates could increase the purchasing power in the hands of the people and could push them to spend more, thereby reviving demand in the economy. Indrapal Singh Nagi is asking, is the current economic state a good time to invest in mutual equity funds? I'm sorry, I'm not a stock market expert, so I can't tell you if it's a good time to invest. What I have been told is you should be a long-term investor and stay invested. Prasad Mukherjee is asking, how much does this growth rate reflect in India's job market? So, when growth is slowing down, it obviously indicates that companies are not manufacturing or producing as much as they used to before. So in terms of, anecdotal data suggests, like for automobile sales, automobile companies, we have seen on how automobile firms were forced to, introduce those no production days and actually shut down production on particular days. And we saw on how many contract employees were let go in the automobile sector because there was a lack of demand for cars. So obviously slowdown in growth does adversely impact jobs in the market. Vinay Gaud EM is asking if decline in automobile industry is one of the main reasons for the GDP numbers that we are seeing. It's one of the reasons, and actually it's one of the reasons for a contraction in the manufacturing sector. But there are many other sectors also that contribute to manufacturing, and we've seen that the contraction has been across many industries. Potul is asking, is privatization a viable option if inflation is high? I don't think there's any direct correlation between inflation and privatization. Privatization, the government basically needs that the state-run enterprises are doing well and they have a demand among the buyers. So inflation doesn't really come into the picture. Aditya Ganesh is asking, with the idea of abolishing income tax, hiking interest rates and fixing fixed deposits and lowering its loans as suggested by Subramanian Swamy to stimulate the economy work. So as I mentioned, there has been a lot of commentary by economists on how ideally a decrease in personal income tax rates could help in increasing consumption because it will actually increase the purchasing power or the money in the hands of the people. Yash Avi Chawla is asking, how can opposition pressurize the government to take reforms that could help the economy to recover? So, so far the opposition hasn't been able to effectively pin the government on its economic management. We saw in the debate, there was a recent debate also in the Rajya Sabha where the government, reiterated the fact that there has been a slowdown, but it is not a recession. So, the opposition has not been really able to effectively pin the government when it comes to the economy and its management of the economy. Sagar Pandey is asking that why the government does not take action on recommendation of economists, for example, what has been suggested by Raghuram Rajan and many more. So what we have seen so far of this government is that it has not really had a very wide consultative process when it comes to economists. Even, the Chief Economic Advisory Council of the Prime Minister has not been really consulted when it comes to what needs to be done to revive the economy. So this has been a government which has not been really consultative, especially on the economics part of it so far. Nitin Parekh is asking, can we say that the global economic slowdown has an impact on domestic markets? Yes, obviously a global economic slowdown does impact a country like India. So we've been seeing on how our exports have been contracting, and this is partly because of the fact that, one, yes, India has not become, is not competitive now, in many of its industries are not competitive, but also on the other hand, many of the demand has really died down in global markets because of the slowdown. So yes. That's all we have for now. Thank you so much for watching. This is Remya and Nair for ThePrint.